British society is at a crossroad. If you don't know your past, how can you know your future? Cranwell is an institution unto itself.
From Nelson to Wellington to Henry VIII.
If somebody would ask me, well, where should I begin? I would say Churchill. The jets are ready. British pilots are at the very top of the game. Having received the commission from the King representing Jewry to the forces, it's just about humanity. People are more in need of guidance today than ever before. It's a very pertinent, perceptive question. On the streets of the UK, the level of anti-Semitism is on the rise.
Greatness can be just around the corner if we just keep buggering on.
Greatness exposes itself when your back's up against the wall.
Good evening.
Great
Citizens.
down and out.
Never surrender.
He's done it.
Famous victory. We're going to come back.
Turn to glory.
Since the early days of flight, the RAF have been known as the gold standard.
While the public takes shelter, our fighter pilots take off to destroy the enemy.
And I'm here with Rabbino, Flight Lieutenant Beck Spitzer. G'day and cheers.
Good day to you.
So tell me a little bit about that experience of becoming the first commissioned Jewish chaplain since World War II.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey. It's been a wonderful journey. I received the commission towards the end of 2023. So I've been in service for just under 3 years. And the process took the best part of 5 years as such, going through selection and then the training and the medicals and
all the fun.
All the fun, exactly. It was quite arduous, and Cranwell was a 10-week stint in total. I was put on quite a unique kind of program with the reservists, with the specialists, and so.
Maybe can you tell us a little bit about Cranwell and its history?
Paying her first visit to the Royal Air Force College, where her father was once stationed, Princess Elizabeth honors cadets passing out to be officers. But he must have had quite a bit of competition, judging by the smart turnout.
Cranwell is an institution unto itself. People, when they refer to their time at Cranwell, the officer training course, it's both with fond memories and also some bitter experiences. I don't know anybody that hasn't got a mixture of both. They push you physically, mentally, emotionally. Several times I thought, wow, I'm not going to be able to get through this because they keep loading up the stress levels. But you push through, and with the help of colleagues, you get through. And what was particularly memorable for me was the graduation ceremony, which was a fantastic day, having practiced drill for months on end. That final day when you receive the salute from your sergeants, from your superiors, walking into the rotunda, that will be a day I'll remember for the rest of my life.
It sounds like the meaning of wearing the RAF uniform is very important to you. And it's something that I think has been very important to all those that have worn it for many years. Now that you're in a position of chaplaincy and having pilots and RAF personnel come to talk to you, is that a discussion point?
Wearing the uniform, wearing my rank, representing something that's much bigger than myself, with such an august history and a respected role within the military and within society. I would say now in reflection, I wouldn't have thought of this prior to entering the military, but now that I'm on the inside, I don't think it's possible to fully grasp British society nationally and internationally if you don't really understand the infrastructure and the hierarchy that exists within the three services. It really is an integral part of the fabric of British identity and nationality, in my opinion.
Are you talking about the aristocratic structures or?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that British society does have an element of class division still, but the categories are blurred around the edges. Certainly, I didn't grow up in any privileged background, and it has afforded me all of the privileges of education and possibilities. So, if somebody puts their mind to it, I think there's no real limitation in terms of what they can achieve. But yeah, there are certain class divisions still within British society. And the officer class is typically from private school, from Oxbridge, etc. But that's really being a little bit too generalistic. And so therefore, it's not hard and fast rule.
Well, I mean, the RAF, you throughout history, I mean, you think back to World War I, when it all got started, was very much the top tier of society.
Flash out here. Yeah. Cancel the state funeral. Tell the king to stop blubbing. Flash is not dead. I simply ran out of juice.
And of military expertise.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
How much has that legacy continued on, and how much has the expertise factor been a strong suit?
Yeah, it's really interesting being asked that question from an Aussie. It's really very interesting.
Well, we had the ingenuity and, we had the grit. And we let you Poms have a bit of a fly.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Today, the numbers are down. The numbers are greatly down. But I must say, I think we punch far above our weight in terms of the personnel. The planes that we fly and the level at which we offer our contribution to NATO is still very significant. Of course, it doesn't match the US, where we are currently seated today in Miami. It pales into insignificance in comparison to the manpower and the resources that they have at their disposal. But I think that Britain can still be very proud of their role in terms of the Royal Air Force and what we have to offer global peace and global strategy.
The story of British military is great. The first ever proper army by Henry V and the first Air Force which is the RAF.
Yeah.
It's always had a significant role in the world, the British Empire, even, into the 20th century, in the late 20th century, with James Bond ending how many wars? Yet today it is most definitely, like you're saying, been minimized, and there is a question on where their relevance, which is open. However, internally, when it comes to the personnel, the pilots, when it comes to their responsibility, how much do they still look at that great history of who the RAF is and who the British military is to say, even if we're smaller, we will still be the top tier and the edge of the spear?
Yeah. I think that it's undoubtedly uncontested that the British pilots are at the very top of the game. The training that they receive and the contribution that they put out, I think can compete and does compete with any other pilot around the globe. And I know that there's a lot of collaboration between our counterparts in NATO and further afield in terms of training, in terms of sharing of skills and different environment specialities, shall we say. But certainly they take great pride, and over and above their skills as pilots, there's always the underlying elements of moral, ethical, legal practice. And nothing is compromised. And anybody that does compromise throughout the Royal Air Force on any of these aspects are quickly called out.
I guess also in many ways, I mean, we mentioned World War I, but the Battle of Britain, World War II.
Oh, everything comes back to the Battle of Britain.
Everything comes back to the Battle of Britain, exactly.
Any excuse.
Where never has so much been owed by so many to so few. There is a legacy of the RAF being few, but punching above their weight class.
Yeah.
Is the history, and that history, something that is used as inspiration to keep up there when it is so easy for them to say, we're not what we used to be, we don't need to be there anymore?
No, the Battle of Britain offers a lot of inspiration throughout the entire service. and to all personnel. There's no doubt about it. But also bring with that the first Jewish chaplain. Not that it changes any of my service in terms of chaplaincy, but of course, perhaps I bring a different angle and a different perspective on chaplaincy. So personally, on a personal note, it feels very privileged, and I'm greatly honored to follow in the footsteps of those who preceded me, whose shoulders were much broader than mine, and to continue that legacy.
I want to ask about the pilots and their mindset in that same, which sounds like is a similar idea.
Yeah.
But you being the chaplain,
yes,
you're the one who they go to, just like those chaplains would have had the Battle of Britain pilots go to them. You have the pilots of today come to you. And what is their mindset, and how do they look at their service?
So it's interesting you ask me that. When the pilots come to me, and they do from time to time, they're usually coming to me with regards to subjects that have nothing to do with their deployment or their missions. They're coming to me for familial, social, and everything in between that they're having to deal with alongside their actual work on the ground. So I'm not there in the fray. I'm not there on the front line, or not yet on the front line, although I will be deployed. But we haven't been in active war for so very long that I couldn't tell you precisely what goes through their mind or what their mindset is with regards to going out there in a war situation. But back home, when they come to me, I treat them just like I would anybody else in any other areas of their trade. You know, so I don't know if that answers your question, because I think you want to hear something more strategic.
Yeah, not even strategic, but an insight into the best of the best.
Yeah,
these guys essentially are as skilled
yes,
as your Van Dykes or your Steven Gerrards or Shane Warne. But instead of them being on the cricket pitch, they're in a fighter pilot, without the grandeur, but still the same sense of pride and responsibility and high expertise.
Yeah, I mean, you could pick up on speaking to them and with them. They're highly astute and precise and focused individuals. And they are like that in all areas of their life. They're trained in that way. There is no room for error. And they conduct their mission with great pride and integrity that I can vouch for.
I would assume there is a large proportion that are non-Jewish.
Yeah.
Do you find that there is an intrigue in you being the rabbi specifically, and any differences?
Yes, I do. And ironically, several people have called into chaplaincy requesting to see the rabbi specifically. Why that is precisely, I'm not sure. But they certainly do seek counsel and are intrigued and ask questions about my faith. And of course, we are there to serve all faiths and none. So it's totally equal. If there is something specific that's faith specific that I cannot conduct for them, that I call upon one of my colleagues to step in, whether it be Anglican or Catholic or anything else for that matter.
And what would you say is some of the differences in perspective that you can offer, being the Old Testament specific?
Yeah. Well, without getting theological, it's very hard to put your finger on the Judaic worldview. Judaic worldview.
Two Jews, three opinions. There is no specific.
Well, exactly. That's exactly right. And I don't really allow my theology or my practice to necessarily come into my chaplaincy work unless I'm called to do so. So it's just about humanity and offering counsel to the best of my ability based on all of my life's experiences and based on my time as a communal minister. But it's rare that we get into debates of theology or philosophy. Usually it's more...
I mean more, what do you think being a rabbi brings to the table that they're asking for a rabbi specifically, rather than going to whatever faith group they are or none at all?
I've asked myself that question. I think subconsciously that sometimes those who have a Christian faith might feel perhaps coerced or threatened speaking to a priest or Christian leader who might suggest that they attend a service. And with the rabbi, it's total neutrality. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I think maybe there's something subconscious about that. And they think, well, okay, I'm kind of outside of their faith, and so therefore they feel less obliged, perhaps, at some level. That's the only thing I can put it down to. I certainly don't claim any greater expertise.
To talk a little bit about the RAF and what it means to you when you go out wearing your uniform representing the RAF as a rabbi, obviously, but at major events, and you know that everyone is looking at you, seeing you in that uniform. What does that mean for you, and what responsibility do you find that entails? I'm
basically representing Jewry to the forces at that moment, under the auspices of the Chief Rabbi's office, having received the commission from the King, no less. It's much bigger than myself. And so therefore I have to step up to that responsibility, to the knowledge that people are looking to me for guidance, for leadership, and a voice in what is a very confusing, turbulent global atmosphere right now, with a lot of prejudice from all kinds of corners coming back to the table in British society. I think people are more in need of guidance today than ever before. And if I can offer a little bit of clarity along that journey, whether that be in public speaking or whether that be on one-to-one counsel, it's my privilege to do so.
You mentioned being commissioned by the King.
Well, essentially, yes.
And I know that the King had involvement on the insignia that you wear on your shoulder.
Yes.
So can you talk a bit to that notion and what that means to you?
They had to receive the approval of new insignia that was made for myself, which you can't see here right now, although you can see a little bit on my rank slides. But I think it had to be approved at the highest level because it had to be sent out to be made especially. And so one day these badges are probably going to be some kind of historical memorabilia of some sort, or perhaps not memorabilia, but it will go down as
significance.
It will go down as a slice of British history.
Quite a heavy burden to hold if you are the insignia of Judaism in the Royal Air Force.
Yeah.
Knowing that your decisions are tied to the story of Jews in the RAF. Due to that, do you hold that responsibility while holding yourself?
It's a very pertinent and perceptive question, if I may say. I do think that I hold that legacy, that I carry that weight upon my shoulders. I don't think about it all the time. If I did, I probably wouldn't be able to function at ease. But the reality is when people look at me in uniform, performing my duties, they are probably thinking about the throwback to both world wars where there were many serving Jewish chaplains globally. So, yeah, certainly it's a huge responsibility and I'm not daunted.
Do you do anything to remember their names and their legacy?
We have the Ajax annual march, and there are memorials throughout the year, and they are remembered, they are mentioned, they are spoken of within the larger military representation, Jewish military representation, certainly.
Being a chaplain, I'm sure you have to lead services from time to time. And a baritone is something that you can hit. So when coming into the chaplaincy, where did you gain your great experience of a tune?
Before I entered ministry, communal ministry, I worked as a baritone soloist, as you're alluding to. And I worked at the Israeli Opera in Tel Aviv and worked with the Israeli Philharmonic, with some big conductors, with orchestras, as well as in Portugal and the UK as well. So singing is a big part of my life. It's still a big part of my life. I'm not treading the boards as I used to, but I have given a recital with the Salon Orchestra of the Royal Air Force, and there's talk of future engagements, possible engagements, potential, with music services within the RAF. So no, I look forward to having a role to play in that, and the art of singing and music making is really very important within the British forces. So they are respected, and a lot of attention is given to programming within the music services, who are also based at Northolt, if I may add, where I am currently the station chaplain, stepping in for my colleague who's on deployment. So we are a relatively small base at Northolt, but it's a very diverse base and a very important base, being the London base, with King's Colour Squadron and law services, music services, reservist 600 Squadron, of which I'm a part of. There's lots of different areas there that are really very important at Northolt. And I also cover Northwood headquarters, which of course, as you know, is NATO. So I get to rub shoulders with our counterparts throughout Europe.
I'd love to get to that point of NATO and how Europe works, but I want to stay on the music for a moment. You mentioned how seriously music is taken in British in the British military, and being an Aussie, like you mentioned, obviously the last post is something that every Australian hears and beds a tear for. Why do you think that is something that hits so hard? And can you talk to the nature of music in how it can affect people?
Yeah. Well, I think, and perhaps I'm biased, but music is the most ethereal of all of the art forms, in that once you make it, it then disappears. So once a note dissipates, it's never retrieved, or perhaps it just continues traveling throughout our world for eternity. That's quite philosophical.
You haven't seen me play football yet, mate, I'll tell you what.
I'm sure. So, music traverses all languages, all geographical location, all cultures. It's something that is universal, that permeates the very depths of the human existence and soul. Any society that takes itself seriously has some form of music making that brings people together for remembrance, for memory, for celebration, and everything in between.
You talk about taking seriously, and that's something that the British people definitely have a reputation of, with a good sense of humour as well. Being in the United States. Have you noticed that the difference in tone, and more specifically, what do you think inspires that seriousness yet witty humour of the British people?
Yeah. Well, the Brits, we are more reserved. perhaps a little bit more subtle in our expression, and I mean that with the greatest of respect, of course. The Americans are more out there, shall we say, more outspoken. You can hear them above the din. The Brits, we just get on with the job and hopefully do it to the best of our ability. And it's part of the fabric of British culture. I must say, I think we're overly self-deprecating at times. We don't need to be so apologetic all of the time. But that's part of the society, and that's probably something that's built up over the millennia, perhaps. The next generation, I think, is changing slightly.
You mentioned working with European partners. Obviously, Brexit had a change on that nature. Do you find working with our NATO allies that there is any bit of a nerve or a separation now, or internally when it comes to the military, the job still is done to protect Western civilization, essentially?
Yeah, as I say, I can't tell you how it contrasts, because I only started working at Northwood headquarters fairly recently. So I wouldn't be able to give you an overview of how it used to be and how it is today. However, I don't see any collaboration that has been perturbed or compromised at all with regards to us dealing with the French, Germans, Italians, and anybody else.
Can you talk a little bit to the experience of working with such a diverse group of nations and languages?
Yeah, that's really wonderful, because from time to time, there will be people from those nations that come to see me at chaplaincy. And I speak several other languages, so I'm able to speak to them in their mother tongue. And we meet in the gym doing circuits. We meet in the sauna. We meet in chaplaincy. We meet in the cafe. And I think for them to see a British chaplain, a military chaplain, Jewish chaplain representing and at their service, I like to think that goes a long way.
Seeing so many American chaplains and Jewish service members, does that give you a sense of inspiration to know that you're not alone and that there is this great tradition out there of serving nations that protect us and our freedoms?
I'm really glad you asked that question. I couldn't comprehensively tell you how touched and moved I am to see how many Jewish serving personnel, cadets, and chaplains exist in the US. They're so integrated and take such pride in their service within the US military. It's overwhelming for me to see that, and to see how the US really go out of their way to accommodate. I do believe that there's a lot of notes that can be exchanged, and when I get back to the UK, I'll be sharing many of my experiences with my colleagues within the rabbinate, within chaplaincy, and further afield. But yeah, I've been really inspired, and it's underpinned exactly what I'm doing back home in the UK.
The close bond between Britain and America, do you find that's something that by bringing service members over here in years to come could be strengthened? And
yeah, I mean, part of the impetus of me coming to this conference, symposium, is not only for personal gain, but also to potentially create new lines of liaison with chaplaincy back home. I like to think that there'll be greater fluidity between the American chaplaincy, Jewish chaplaincy, and the RAF chaplaincy. I'd like to think that perhaps I can build some bridges, and there's a lot to be learned on both sides of the ocean from one another. And I know that the Aleph Institute are very keen. So when I get back, I'll be having conversations with the chaplain in chief.
And when it comes to service members and Jewish service members in the RAF, Can you tell us a little bit about what their lives are like and what their mindsets are?
Once in a while, they come up to tell me that, oh, you know, we are of the Jewish faith, we are Jewish, we went to a Jewish school, but it's often kept under the radar, excuse the pun. But they will typically not make it public for whatever reason. I like to think that's not because of the potential of being prejudiced against, but I suspect that there are still elements that influence their decision.
Does that become a conversation when talking to Jewish personnel in a different manner?
Yeah, it always comes up. It always comes up. I think I'd be very naive to think that prejudice doesn't exist. It does exist. Sometimes it's more overt, sometimes it's more covert, but unfortunately, and of course, prejudice exists with regards to all minority groups. It's not exclusive to the Jewish faith, but especially now, where people confuse the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians and Jewish people. Well, there's such a huge confusion, and people don't differentiate, and there's such a blurring of lines. And as you know, being an Aussie, with the recent atrocities that have taken place in Sydney, and also on the streets of the UK, the level of anti-Semitism is on the rise, and so I'd be very naive to think that doesn't exist.
Well, internally in the RAF, being that you're with people who are there to protect freedom, protect what is right, do you find that people come up to you to say that they are saddened to see what's going on outside and are there to support you?
There are some very significant people who reach out to me, and they write me emails or send me texts expressing their solidarity. There's also a blanket silence from other quarters, but I don't believe that silence is anything subversive. I think most people don't know exactly what to say in those situations. They don't know how to confront death and murder and attack. They don't quite know what to say, and so therefore they stay silent. But there are people who always reach out to me and express their condolences and solidarity.
You talk about not knowing the tightrope of death, attack, and fight, or murder. But that is very much the role that you have to sit in, being a chaplain, especially if conflict does re-arise and the British Air Force, the RAF, have to get involved. So how do you battle that tightrope? And what are some of the things that you think about?
Well, I think about the probable imminent threat in Eastern Europe. I think that sooner or later, NATO and Britain being part of NATO will have to get involved. Exactly where that conflict will be and when it will start, I haven't a clue. But I think it's probably a question of when and not if. So yeah, I think that's on the horizon, and the conflict is moving into Europe again. And of course, further afield, there are many parts of the world that are currently at war. But I think Britain will be implicated and offer their service and do their fair share if conflict kicks off in Eastern Europe.
It's interesting you mentioned the situation in Eastern Europe, because from an American perspective, it feels distant, almost like there is a funding nature to it all, but a disconnect. Being in Europe and feeling that threat, what is the mindset there, and what are the differences and the insights that you can give on what that means for Europeans? Yeah,
I don't think it's far from the bone. I think it's very close to the bone in Eastern Europe and also Western Europe. I think that people take it very seriously in countries like Lithuania and Latvia and Estonia. I think that it's something that is a big part of their lives on a daily basis. We're a little bit more removed in the UK. The people who are in the military, certainly at a strategic level, are well aware of what's taking place. Who knows? Perhaps I will be deployed to Eastern Europe. You never know. But certainly, it's something that's on the horizon, and that's very much part of our consciousness.
Since Iraq and Afghanistan and those conflicts have dwindled or ended, the RAF, like you're saying, it has been in peacetime. With the potential threat of Eastern Europe, what is the mindset of the RAF and of the RAF pilots who are looking at what's going on there and saying that there is a potential that we're going to have to get into conflict?
Yeah, no, I think that the RAF, like all of our counterparts in Europe, are always ready and on the alert to engage if and when and where the need arises. I don't want to create an environment of panic or paranoia, but the UK are always ready and on the alert to protect our national borders and interests, and they're trained to do so at the highest level.
Do you find that there is a different tone in the step of those who?
No, I don't think so. I think that it stays the same, but they're always on high alert.
That British calmness with a readiness to turn it on.
Oh, completely. And of course, the jets are ready from Coningsby and Lossiemouth 24/7.
Talking about those in the RAF that aren't necessarily pilots, how much do you find it being important to make them feel a sense of pride as well in what they do, and how important it is for society to notice that those clogs in the machine are integral? Yeah,
so everybody throughout their trades take their responsibility very seriously. I like to think with great pride that they conduct their responsibilities to a highest level. Everybody from right at the bottom to the very top, their role is no less important. I would like to see a greater appreciation on the streets of the UK in national service to personnel. I would like to see the British public really acknowledging the service of our aviators who put their life on the line very often to protect the physical well-being of the nation. You know, so there is a patriotism that perhaps could improve, that has been eroded as of late for maybe several reasons. Yeah,
patriotism in many circles has almost become a dirty word.
It has, and I think that's a great pity because it's misunderstood.
So to you, what does it mean to be British?
Yeah. Well, I think it means to be fair. I think it means to offer equality, tolerance. I think it's something to take great pride in. My family on my mother's side came to Britain from India, and I'm a first generation British born, and I have been offered all of the privileges, whether that be in social health care, whether that be the education system. One is capable and able to climb the ladder throughout all areas of British society if you put your mind and your heart to it. So yeah, I'm very grateful for the multiculturalism that is London, where I was born. And as I say, I'd like to see a higher level. Well, certainly here in the US, it's overwhelming to see the level of patriotism, and I would like to see something equivalent.
The remembrance of the British history, from Nelson to Wellington to Henry VIII.
Right.
How much is that also a factor of Britishism and nationalism, and how would you direct that conversation?
Yeah, I don't think it's being taught. I'm not sure, but I don't think that the schooling system is teaching, or certainly not teaching enough of it. I know that perhaps specific schools focus on potential military careers, but across the nation, I'm not sure how much of that history is really being given over to the next generation.
Do you think that is where the erosion possibly is?
Well, it always starts at education. All areas of prejudice and blindedness, shall we say, starts at the level of the youth and lack of education. And so, as a rabbi, I'm there to educate with all of the humility that entails, to explain the Jewish faith, and also to explain chaplaincy, and to hopefully offer a service to serve and not be served, which is our motto, to all personnel, no matter of their faith or background.
The rabbi aspect and the Jewish aspect is potentially a good question to ask, that we remember everything yearly, from our slavery on Passover to those that were heroic in defending our people in Hanukkah.
Jewish people globally, no matter their level of observance, religiosity, are steeped in remembrance, as you say. Our festivals are all based around remembering something and celebrating the future. So, it's cliche, but it's true. If you don't know your past, how can you know your future? So, yeah, I think that the subject of memory is a huge subject, of course. But any culture, any society that's really worth its ethical and moral stand has to know about its history, has to give suitable remembrance to those who have offered the ultimate sacrifice to allow us to go on and to promulgate those values that we hold to be precious and dear.
So if you had the opportunity to pick one person of British history that British people remember and learn deeply, who would that be for you?
Militarily, certainly, it has to be Sir Winston Churchill. I mean, I've read some of his memoirs and biography, which is vast. If somebody would ask me, well, where should I begin? I would say Churchill.
What is your reason for that?
His leadership, his vision, his courage, his clarity of decision-making, his underpinning of pride in the nation with regards to conflict, his faith.
In many ways, when it comes to Churchill, his story gives inspiration of what it was seeing with the fear in society today, a knowledge that if you keep buggering on in his motto and his wording, you can end up being exactly what you just said, being a man that obviously was captured in the Boer War, to the Gallipoli campaign, to losing seats in Parliament, going from the Labour to the Tories, and this great journey. But when I ask what do you remember him for, it's really the last few years of his life that we do.
Right.
Then even lost prime ministership after beating Hitler. How do you
You've certainly done your homework on Churchill, it sounds to me.
With that great journey of his life, do you see an equivalent in what the nature of society is now, and the hope that no matter what people are feeling, the fears, the worries, the uncomfortabilities, that greatness can be just around the corner if we just keep buggering on.
I think that we're at a crossroads. I think that British society is at a crossroads. I think that it needs some serious leadership in forging the way forward. You know, being Jewish and being British is totally compatible, is totally expected, in my view. But there are many in Britain today who feel that their personal identity conflicts with their British interests. And so I think that this education and pride of what it is to be integrated within British society is to be reinforced. Whether that will produce another Churchill or not, who can tell? Who can tell? But greatness usually exposes itself when your back's up against the wall. So when needs be, there are always people that step forward.
And I think of all organizations, the RAF is definitely one which breeds those sorts of people.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've met some really outstanding leaders and individuals who carry out their duties to the highest level with pride and humility.
So the last question I'll ask is to those that are Jewish out there that are looking at Western countries that are having their difficulties with anti-Semitism today, and you standing in those same nations' service.
Yeah.
What would you say to all of us, and what's a message of hope, or maybe not, but I think yes, that you could give?
So to answer your question, to those people of the Jewish faith, don't be afraid, don't be a victim, stand up with courage and healthy pride of who you are and what you are and why you are. I'm an eternal optimist. I believe in the intrinsic good of the human spirit. The best is yet to come, and we will survive. We will overcome, and we will move forward into a new dawn. I know that some people would say that that's very naive, but I prefer to be naive than to be cynical.
That is a beautiful way to end it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
I'll give you a proper handshake.
Thank you, Raf.
There we go.
Thank you, Raf.
Cheers.